Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, okay, now I hear me. Whoa. I'm the bottom one.
Yeah, I think you're the bottom one.
Okay, cool. Oh my god, well, that's a way to fucking start this gay podcast.
Okay, so welcome back to What's After 21. Today we have a special guest. He's a celebrity. Some of you know him as Daniel Dan. He goes by many names. But yeah, today we have him on, and we're just gonna shoot the shit and just talk about random stuff. I did actually bring him here for a specific reason, because on my last podcast I talked about LGBTQIA plus things, and I was
I'm
learning.
not gay.
No? Oh,
No.
wrong guy, probably. Sorry. Wait, what's your name?
Wrong apartment.
wrong room. No, yeah, but I felt like I needed to, well, I was also told to in the comments by some people to get educated. So I felt, what better way to educate myself than have someone who's been in the game longer than me. And
Whoa, the shade.
oh, sorry, you're not that much older, but
No,
you're
no.
older.
I didn't. I meant the shade from your comments. What do you mean?
Oh, yeah. No, yeah.
I
they
mean,
were-
yeah. Now I feel the shade from the age. But
I updated you. No, yeah, I was getting comments that were like, basically, I don't know if I should get into it right now or should I wait?
Go for it.
Basically, so people were just talking about how I was like completely wrong on what I was like getting out of like off of online, which granted, okay, I mean, online doesn't have the best of,
Yeah,
it's not the best
okay,
source
okay,
to get educated.
yeah.
But I was attempting it because I just wanted to like kind of give it a shot, right? Because I'm in this community and I think I should be a little more educated on like how to speak and act and talk and
Okay.
how to address people with like,
Oh, you're not flamboyant enough.
no,
Paint yourself rainbow.
yeah, no, literally. But I'm like trying to learn or whatever. But the good thing was, at least they came at me, but they came at me in a little bit of a respectful way, in the fact that they did address
Okay.
that. Yeah, they did
Okay.
address that they appreciate me trying to learn, which was cool.
Okay,
I was like,
that's
okay, that's
good, that's
yeah,
good.
that's what I'm trying to like do here. I'm trying to learn. I'm not coming on here saying I know everything, right?
Okay, yeah.
I'm like, I'm coming on here trying to learn together because I don't know anything.
Yeah, like starting a conversation, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So whatever. So I what? Oh, so I'm here today. I'm here to have you on just to kind of talk about that. The space and what has to do with it and stuff like that. But before we get into any of that, first of all, let's start with us. How did we meet?
How did we meet? Okay, well, before even that, like, I need to preface with people, I have like a very dry sense of humor, so please don't knock it on that. I have like
Yeah.
a very dry, like very, I don't even know how you would describe my humor really. I'm very sarcastic, so don't hit it
As
on
am
that.
I. So
yeah,
let's
yeah.
take this podcast lightly.
Lightly, yeah, grain of
And-
salt.
Yeah,
We're
not-
having fun while educating with fun.
Exactly.
We met, I think, via Instagram.
Yeah,
I think,
yep.
So, like content creators do nowadays,
You know.
we met via Instagram, and I think it was the connection that we were both in the same state. So,
Yeah.
that's how we met. Also, because we have like I am from a couple's account, so I am half of that account. It's Nick and Dan for Little King Life. So, I think it was Nick reaching out because he had this time during the pandemic where he was just like enjoying trying to be a content creator and like putting our channel out there. And so he was like reaching out to content creators, and I think that's how we met. And then you came to the city once, and we like hung out.
Yeah.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, that's true. After we met and stuff, what was your first impression on me as a person?
I found you interesting because I don't know, like I feel like, okay, so quick background on me. I immediately jumped into the community and worked at a gay club for I was a bartender.
Okay.
So
Right.
and then I feel like I have like this lens, obviously the stereotypical lens, right, of the community, like that you would think.
Yeah.
I just found you very interesting because I think you are very ambitious. You had a lot of goals, and you are really driven.
Yeah.
And not that I haven't met any other queer people like that, but you just had something about you and I really like driven people. Like I'm very drawn to driven people. Like
Yeah.
that's the type of community that I want around me. So that was my first impression. I'm like, I like this guy.
Love that. Love to hear it. Before we start diving more into like the LGBTQIA plus community,
no.
what's your sexuality?
Let's leave the gays out the gay. What is my sexuality? I don't know. I would say, I mean, yeah, like I'm like a Kinsey scale, like insane. But I would say I'll say I'm gay, just for argument's sake. But I do think like I've had there is some degree of bisexuality to me, because I have been sexually attracted to girls before. It's just been really far and few in between.
Okay.
It's just been very rare. Very rare. And so
that's why you mainly like, you're just like, I'm gay, because it's like you kind of haven't found yourself really wanting to like commit to a girl before.
Yeah, I mean, girl, like the like it would have to be really good, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Like in all aspects. And I feel like for me, I think it's also just background and like my upbringing and some of my trauma just really plays into why, you know, like I don't necessarily see myself with a woman.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. And so I feel like a lot of and maybe I may be diving in too deep, so if you have points, let me know.
Okay.
Structure the conversation, please, because I will ramble. But I'm a rambling queen.
No, you're good.
But I feel like whenever people talk about queer experiences, or like the queer life experience and just lived experiences, even like mental health professionals will tell you that childhood has a huge role in who you are. And it's a very, very fine line to toe, because, you know, people who are not very welcoming of the community, and or, you know, they're on the other side of the fence and they're bigots, homophobes, etc.
Yeah.
They would, part of like the grandstand that they stand on is like, well, you have a choice. Like, this is a choice.
Yeah.
This is a choice for you.
Heard that.
And or yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, you watch too much anime, gay things, queer little girly things when you were a kid, and that's what made you gay. And so like it's like the whole make you gay type of thing. But it is a fine line to toe, because mental health professionals, sexuality aside, just overall, there's a lot of research on how your childhood really plays into your adult life.
Yeah.
And the choices that you make, how you interact, the relationships that you engage in, and by relationships I mean not only romantic, like platonic and familial.
Yeah.
Point is that mental health professionals really like do say that it's, you know, it's just childhood plays a lot of part. So I think like I grew up around women. I'm really comfortable around women. Like if you put me in a room with men, I am definitely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And I think it's just automatic. But I have the amazing both blessing and curse of being attracted to so that's a really long answer to what's your sexuality. Like let me give you a dissertation.
It was granted. If you could be straight, would you, and why?
I think I spent so much of my formative years and just finding myself trying to be straight that no, like being queer has its challenges in a very heterosexually coded world. Like I feel like it's true, this world was made by straight people for straight people. So in the context of like, would life be easier because I would have a script to follow, right? Like grow up, date, marry, have a kid, you know, get a house and watch my kids grow, pay them college, and then die. It would be easy, but like you know, and that's like what I told myself whenever I was struggling coming to terms with my sexuality. But I feel like being queer is a blessing, and I feel like it opens your eyes to like how different life is whenever you don't fit the norm, and when you have to essentially structure a life outside of that.
Yeah.
How do you basically, there's this whole concept of like found family or built family, like a family outside your own, especially if your family is not accepting and or tolerant. So like, how do you do that? How do you build a community around yourself? And I feel like queer people, there's like a double task for us, in the sense that like we have to come to terms with who we are by the time that our peers are already like dating, and they know who they are in the sense of that word, so they don't have to really worry about that. That's like whatever to them. But we are working on figuring out who we are. And so I feel like queer people tend to be more driven, more creative, more resourceful, and those are all skills that really, I don't think, had I not been queer, I probably wouldn't have necessarily, or not as strongly, I should say. Right. And I think I'm blessed to, I always see it as a blessing now, because it's part of, it's not even part of who I am, it's just an essence. Yeah, I see it to me. So yeah, I feel like
as like being like in the queer space and community, it's like you have to adjust a lot of times to like certain environments. And I think that definitely being queer, what we have above anyone in like the straight side of things, we can adapt more like a chameleon than they could, because it's like we had to, you know, growing up, you had no choice but to, especially if you entered a space that was very homophobic. It's like, let me talk deeper and let me like fix my stance, or like so it's like you kind of were like forced to like become a chameleon in a sense. So I definitely see what you're saying. It's made you acquire a better you today than if you were to be straight. You feel like you'd be a little less than.
Do you feel like you ever wish, like, have you ever wished that?
I think I have before. I've definitely like sat and been like, I wish I just liked girls only. Like I wished I was just it, because it was like a moment for me that with my family and stuff, I just know it would be easier. And like my family, whether they like to admit it or not, those that are watching right now, I am outing you guys right now. They can be very judgmental, and like they just like, and sometimes they don't even mean harm by it. It's just like in their nature, like
that's
it's just
Hispanic
the way they
families
are.
Overall.
Yeah, no,
that's
exactly.
Like,
so like it's just how they are, and it forced me to kind of be like, I want to bring like the most hottest girl home, and like everyone be like, oh my god,
you grew up with a damn standard of like, you have to bring the hottest girl home, you have to have like the biggest bag, and it's just like
yes. Yeah. So I'm like, I kind of had that moment in my life where I was like, dang it, I wish. And like there was even a point before that I was like talking to some girl, and I found myself almost forcing it, because she fit the standard that they wanted for me. Yeah. This really pretty girl, and like she was like very respectful, she was funny, witty, but I didn't find sparks between us like I wanted to. Yeah. So I was like, no, I'm okay. And I would talk to somebody else, and then I'm like, okay, this person is better, and it happens to be a guy. So I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm gonna have to just be with a guy. And doing that, you know, knowing how my family would react, they react kindly in front center, which I'm thankful for, because a lot of people don't have it that easy. Yeah. They will be like, oh my god, good for you.
Well, I would like to pause there, because I feel like tolerance is not necessarily easy. It's just, I feel like, because there are families, my family's the same, right? Like I feel like my family's tolerant, right, but I feel like they don't totally get it.
Absolutely.
So and then like, I know maybe when I'm not there, or like when we're not there, because of how Hispanic families are, it's literally like a telenovela. Yes, literally. So like abuelita will come out and she'll be like,
we're the topic of conversation for the next hour.
And then it's a drama revolving around us. So yeah, I mean, fully. I get you.
Yeah, but other than that, what was your gay awakening?
What was it? Well, let me ask you this before. Yeah. How, like, retrospectively, like, when did you realize that you were queer?
You know, the most, I would say, like, against what I'm gonna say, many people would be against, and you'd be like, no way, you knew it at that age. But you genuinely know it at a young age.
Yes.
And I was like, I'd say Ooh, actually, I'm actually having like more moments that are coming up, and I'm like, I was starting at 11, and now I'm like down to 8 years old. So I would say about around 8.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
like,
So same.
Okay.
Like, okay. I just didn't want to make it seem like I was leading the conversation because yes. So that's why I was curious. Same thing. I was the one thing that I really can recall. This memory will forever be embedded in my memory. I was an 8-year-old watching Power Rangers. Wild Force, and I feel like that's the moment where like it started clicking for me, where like I knew I was different.
Yeah.
This was this is too specific, but I was watching the Power Rangers Wild Force. It was like the last episode. Okay. It was like the last stand where like the Power Rangers were like doing the thing, and the Red Ranger took off his shirt, and my cousin watched the episode the night before. I was just catching up, and he like told me all about it, and then he said, oh, Red Ranger took off his shirt at the end, final stand, blah blah blah. Okay. And literally like that's the kernel of information that like perked me up and got me excited. I'm watching that episode. I like got excited as an 8-year-old, mind you. And like like I had a really religious, strict family. I had, my environment was really heavily stifled and controlled, very much so. So it's not like you can say like, oh, you just had a bunch of, like your family was negligent. Right. You had a lot like hippie family or whatever. It was very much stifled and controlled. So the fact that I was like very excited about like watching a shirtless man. That's
you didn't learn this, did you?
No, I didn't. No.
Watching it or seeing it somewhere.
Exactly.
The world loves to think that we just learn these things. Like it's in us. It's embedded in us. There's nothing we learn.
Exactly. I feel like it's very much. That's why I started calling it an essence. Like it's part of your essence of your human being. And I feel like people who don't really understand sexuality or haven't really educated themselves about it make it your entire personality, right? And then that's where like comments were. Like I feel like bigoted comments wherever they like talk and say, well, I would like if I'm fine with you doing your thing, I just wish it wasn't your entire personality, or you shoved it all over children's faces or whatever. It's like, Karen, you freaking, whenever you were 18, you were probably making out with Johnny in the parking lot and like in a Target parking lot, and like children were walking around, but because you're straight, you weren't shoving it in their face. It was just status quo. It was norm. So, it definitely is very much, and every, like, this might have picked up my stomach rumbling. I haven't eaten.
Skinny
girl. Anyway, so yeah, I feel like many queer people, like most, if not all of queer people that I've met, have a recollection in their childhood of like, oop, that might have been a moment. From that to acceptance, that's completely different, because we all go through like our acceptance journey. Some finally come to terms with it at a later age. Right. I was gay. Shit, I'm sorry. I was gay like from like very very early on. I knew it was just like native. It was like innate to me. So,
I think it's funny because as you're talking, you keep sparking things in my head that I don't think about, but now they're like all coming to my forefront.
You like shove them. They don't like they're just like bury them
because and essentially because they were wrong. You shouldn't be
exactly.
So
be
I'm like,
at a Power
what is
Ranger.
going on? Like, hold up, I don't remember this. So I completely forgot. But I was gonna like say that my gay awakening was with another person, right? Like figuring it out like that. But then I went deeper into my brain of files, and I'm like, wait, it wasn't with a person. It was like an inanimate
object.
Yeah.
Inanimate object.
Yeah, that word. But
I thought you were trying to say enema at first. So I was like,
no.
I was like, girl.
No.
Girl, PG-13.
No. But we would go to stores. Yeah. And in the underwear section,
that is I'm sorry, that is
the
like
models they have on them. I'm like, oh my god,
that is like the common thread though. Like Calvin Klein models, I don't know what they did in the like 1990s 2000s for Calvin Klein models, but like they were ripped. And then like if you walked into, I don't know if you ever had this, but like Abercrombie and Fitch, If you walked in
when
there,
magazines were more common. Oh my god!
Yeah.
I'm looking at the
bags,
page.
the bags, the bags. But that's like the common thread that you will find. Like every queer person will, well, at least gay men will. You tell them like the whole underwear aisle story, and they'll be like, yes.
That's so funny. I didn't know it was that common. I literally thought I was the only one. I think I'm special. No, that makes sense though. I'm glad I'm not the only one because now I know that was normal. Okay, that was very much normal for me to be looking at those models like that. But okay, good to know. Good to know.
And like at a young age, like you don't really, there's like no sexual energy applied to it. I feel like that's another separation. It's like people think, well, as an 8-year-old or as a 7-year-old, you couldn't have possibly like that with that energy, right? With like the energy, you know?
Yeah.
You didn't. You just knew that like there was something about it that
tingling.
was
something was tingling
something was like in your brain that was like that. And it's kind of like how you pick your favorite color, how you pick things that you like, and
that's a great way to explain it.
Yeah, like it's you form your identity is already very much like this is what I like, this is mine. And I mean, I think it's been so hard because hasn't been until very recently like queer culture has become mainstream in the sense that like it's more widely accepted, and so you're starting to hear stories of commonalities, right? You're starting to find common ground between like queers of various age groups and the fact that we are actually all normal and we are not the weird little gremlins that we were made out to be by cis-het society. So anyway,
what's your favorite like gay show or movie or any of the sorts?
Oh my,
what's your favorite? What's your go-to?
Like gay paraphernalia?
My vocab only goes so far.
I mean, I feel like I'm gonna disappoint the gays with this one.
Ruh-roh.
Because, well, I mean, God, I don't look.
Go off.
Oof, no, like I could like I that would take the rest of the podcast. So I'm just gonna dial back. So I'm trying to think, like in terms of like gay, like queer shows, you know, like the first queer like show or movie that I watched was a movie called Latter Days. And it was actually like really sweet because this was whenever I was like dating on the DL. And when I first started like trying to explore this side of myself. Yeah. And it was actually like this really nice guy. He was already way ahead of me in terms of acceptance and everything. And so I think he was trying to be nice, like introducing me and educating me about stuff. And so that's the first movie that I watched. We watched on his couch. Very like, we did leave room for Jesus because we made it very clear.
Period.
Yeah, we made it very clear that it was very much a friendship. Yeah. And it was really nice. And so I think like that, but I don't have like a recurring like RuPaul's Drag Race because I'm sorry. I admire drag and I have been to drag shows, but I'm not like doing that. And it's really like now like I feel like there's more queer representation in media, so it's easier to be like, you know, I liked Red, White, and Royal Blue. I read the book. I'm a book girly, so I like read a lot of books. There's a lot of like really smutty books. Do you know what I mean when I say smut? Smut means like it just like the author writes like, all of the happenings. All of it. And by all of the happenings I mean like life, like affection and sex. And so I started like reading books that way, but like the smut in them kind of took away from the story. So I think like Red, White, and Royal Blue was really structured very well. And now I feel like it's like mainstream. So now it's like, oh my God, like, you and everybody. But I'm not going to be like I read the book first. So.
But he did.
But I did. And then I watched the movie and I mean, Taylor Zacar Perez, like, Anyway,
Yeah, I think that's my favorite one too. It's funny that you say that, then brought it up, because it's been so long. Like, I would say, here's the reason why I would say that's my favorite one. I've watched a few other films of it, of like gay interactions and stuff like that, but it's like that our community like does not get attention when it comes to production in like cinema, like cinematic film. Like, so it's like we always have the low budget versions of things, and that was like the first, I think, like very big production that like the movie was good, because I love movies, so I'm very picky on what I watch because of that. I love a production. I love it to like be really good, and the budget to be high, basically. But it's like all of the old films that included gay people were like just very low budget films, and I was just like, I can't sit through this. Or it was just like cringy because it was like definitely written by somebody who probably isn't even gay and is just like trying to figure out how gay people would
story?
To tell a story. Like, yeah, exactly. So it was like, yeah, I would definitely say that's my favorite movie.
It's interesting that you say that. For me, actually, now I do like that, and I will say that's still my favorite, but I do like, for example, Love, Simon, and not Love, Simon, sorry, Love, Victor. Love, Simon. Love, Simon is the movie and the book. Love, Victor was the show. The show. And I like Love, Simon, because I think what really turned me off from like earlier gay paraphernalia was that like there was seldom a good ending. It just painted being queer like as this doom and gloom, awful way of living. Like it almost sometimes, like, if it was created by a queer person with low budget, to your point,
right,
but it was created by a queer person to like highlight the queer experience at the time, I understand. But then, for example, like movies like Boy Erased, which I think are important conversations to have, but I feel like they tinged every single piece of queer like show or movie or whatever, and like they painted queer life to be so much less vibrant, and almost like you had a disease. And like as a queer person, like watching those movies, it made me feel very heavy about myself, about like, wow, like life is really this hard, especially because I was kind of living that within like the religious Hispanic community that I grew up in. And so I'm like, wow, like being queer really is a curse. Like my family's not lying, my religion's not lying. Look, this movie, this show is showing that it really is a curse, even with a person that isn't of my religion or my ethnic background. Right. And when like movies that show it in a positive way, or shows or books, things that shed light in like a positive queer experience, I think those are needed. Those things are needed, and that's what attracted me to these pieces, because I think there is a fine line in like telling the very real story of how hard the queer experience is in this world, but there's also like a lot of good to it, and so we should also focus on that.
Right. I get that. It's really just for you about finding a healthy balance between our world and like the good and bad that we have, because I definitely could see I'm an empath down, like I literally
absorb emotion,
oh my god, so heavily it's actually obnoxious, because I will literally...
Wait, did you just watch something that made you cry?
Yes. Oh my god. It's called, not me forgetting what it's called, it's about a dog racing with this guy, but the dog like grew up poor, like grew up in the streets and whatever, and had like a injury because he was attacked by some other dogs, and he ended up like escaping those dogs and like running super far. And this guy was doing a competition that it was like to like run like, I don't know, like 20 miles. That sounds too little. I feel like it was like 50 miles or something like that. It was like this treacherous competition, but he wanted to do it, whatever. He started doing it, and along his like pit stops, because it's such a long competition, they do have little break like spots, so he would take a break and stop at this tent and whatever, and
wait, what's this movie called?
I don't remember, but it's recent. It just came out recently.
But like, to be fair to you, like I would cry at a dog, like Marley and Me. I cried at like at the end of Marley and Me. I guess I am an empath. I love that movie. I am an empath. Like the energy that you bring in the room, like it's sad to say though, because I like to think I have my own energy, and like I bring my own energy,
right?
But I definitely absorb a lot of like the emotion. So like if like the vibe is not right, that's why I don't think I may be like outing myself as like a horrible person, but like this is why like I don't vibe. I feel like with a lot of people because it's either like way too negative or like
yes. No, granted, I'm the same way. That does not make you bad at all. It just makes you healthy.
Yeah. Like, and that's why I'm like, I don't, you know, I'm not gonna be here. Like, I'm not gonna. Yeah. And so like, I'm very selective with who like I'm friends with and stuff because of that.
No, I'm the same way. But yeah, so he's running on his path and the dog ends up seeing the dog and he's like, what the hell are you doing out here? Like, it's the middle of nowhere. They're in like the woods and the dog just pulls up and he wants like some food that the guy's eating. So the guy feeds him. And then after that, they continue running. And it's on like 2 days later. They have been running, right, for so long. And they stop at another tent and the dog pops up again. And he's like, what the hell? How have you made it all the way over here? Like, how are you following us? Like, this doesn't make no sense. So the dog just continues to follow them, this time but openly, and just like walks right next to the guy. And they take him along. And the guy like feeds him and whatever. He ends up saving somebody throughout the movie. And then like he makes it literally all the way to the finish line with them. But then he ends up... Are you gonna watch it? Cause I'm here. I am spoiling the whole movie.
I was gonna be like, girl, yeah.
You're like, thanks.
Like
You're
Paramount. Just like, I guess I don't have to watch it anymore.
Basically, it's a really sad movie. I'm not gonna spoil it because he's gonna watch it. But it's just super sad. The dog goes through a lot of ups and downs.
I've been like asking for the name of the movie though.
I know. I have to look it up after. I'll text you.
I'm not gonna tell you the name of the movie, but I'm gonna tell you the movie.
Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
You know,
I like that
teasing
approach.
You. That's all. But yeah, really good movie. But yeah, I literally cried so many times because every time something would happen to the dog, I start sobbing. So it was like so annoying. But yeah, why was I talking about being an empath?
Queer experience, books, movies, absorbing like negative energy through books. That's what
I think we're good. I think we can move on. Okay. I think we addressed everything. I don't think I missed anything.
Yeah, well, in terms of books, sure, or like movies or
yeah, we talked about that. Okay. Have you ever been with a girl? Because you said you kind of like took interest into girls. Have you ever been with a girl?
Not the ones that I was sexually attracted to. I think it scared me, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
It scared me. Like, I think I was more comfortable with I don't know how PG-13.
No, go off.
Okay. I think I was like more comfortable with like, obviously, you know, like a penis, and like I was more comfortable with that equipment, obviously, because I have it, right? So like I was more comfortable with that and knowing what to expect and such. And I think, like, to be honest, like I didn't even know. I think like also like based on how the men in my life painted women, I felt like maybe I wasn't appreciating women the right way, or like I wasn't confident in the way that I would appreciate women or make her feel appreciated sexually. And so that scared me a lot. Like, it scared me a lot, not only because I wouldn't know what to do with a vagina, but now I could tell you actually, because that's what, not because I've had experience.
He's been busy.
I'm like, no, my V card in that regard is very much still intact. Right?
Okay.
Platinum, gold. But it's just more like, you know, being surrounded by women, understanding, also like hearing them talk, like growing up around women, and also just having a lot of women friends whenever I was, you know, growing up. You understand now like what they want, where they want to be touched, all of that. So like that's the type of like theoretical knowledge that I never put it in practice. But I think like whenever I was still putting myself in the arena of like, oh wow, I'm sexually attracted to this woman, like I'm like, I definitely, like, I read the whole textbook. I even have like some samples from people telling me, but I definitely don't feel comfortable enough to put it into practice. And so while I was feeling the tingling, right?
Yes.
I didn't feel comfortable, like, because that's another thing, and we can go into this rabbit hole entirely, but like sex is an exchange of energy. And so like I feel like there's a lot of people that don't see it that way. And so for me, it's always important to figure out, this goes into so many, I'm trying to like be very careful, but like at the end of the day, you know, it's an exchange of energy, and you just got to also be really mindful of the other person, and mindful of like what they're receiving, and like if they're gonna felt desired, looked after, you know, it's not only just for you or your selfish
Right.
And so like I feel like, again, with men, I know the equipment and I know what makes that happen, but with women, I just never felt that way. So I never crossed that line.
Yeah.
Have you?
I caught him. I have. I crossed the line. I didn't get like.
I'm very curious now.
Yeah. Okay. So I completely get you, and like it's crazy that you're saying what you're saying because like I relate in every way, and I'm like I have always been like I get that tingling with girls, right, and I'm attracted to them, and I want to go there, but it's the fear of not performing well enough for her and then being talked about in a negative way, or now she doesn't want to, now she's not even like, she doesn't even like me anymore because she's like, well, the sex is gonna be bad, I don't want to be with you. So it's like it's tough because it's like, again, like you said, they don't have the body parts we have, so it's like easier to just fuck it, I'm just gonna be with guys because it's like I know what we have, I know what feels good, and for I'd say 95% of the time guys are interested in the same amount of kind of pleasure and same format and like what to do with it, and but it's like for females they're completely different, and even when it comes to like their vagina it's like very different than another girl's or the next girl's or the next girl's, like they are all different. And so it's like that in the back of my head as well is like, damn, even if I learn how to please her, if we break up and now I have another girlfriend, how am I gonna please the next?
Exactly. That, yes.
You know? Yeah.
Yes.
So I'm like, I don't know. It was definitely like really scary. I ended up going through with it before with an ex, obviously. Didn't go very far because.
Like, did you go all the way or no? Like, okay. Did you finish?
No. So we didn't like.
Don't be ashamed because I've known like a ton of stories the similar way. So go.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, it was her first time too. So.
Oh, this was your first time.
This is my first time.
Ooh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was my first and last time.
Okay.
So whatever. I attempted to go in and it was just like painful for her. And I was like, so we did all the practices of, you know, lube and all that stuff. And still she wasn't like, she was like, I can't do this. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we just kind of pulled back from the whole idea itself. We kept trying to explore throughout our relationship, but we're apart now, obviously. And yeah, it just kind of ended there for me. But ever since, like, I've had attractions towards girls and stuff, and I've sought them out. But then when it gets to that step, I'm like, fuck. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm choking now. And it's like, do I try and go through with this and risk losing this person because she might be turned off now? Or do I just, like, now I'm pulling back, and now she's wondering why I'm pulling back. And then it's like, it's just this whole thing. So it's, like, kind of tough to decide where to go with that, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I totally get you. I feel like also, like, it just marks. It's so funny that you mentioned that because I as you were saying that and just, like, the parallel of, like, our experience. And then, like, you get, like, the heterosexual male that, like, over promises and totally under delivers, and here we are, like, panicking about how we're even going to, like, deliver.
Maybe that has to do with being an empath.
That's
right?
true.
We fear how they may feel
exactly
after, you know?
Yeah, because this is not like not all straight men are that way.
Right.
not all men.
I hate all men, but
I hate all men, but not all men. Yeah, I it's so funny that you mentioned that because I've heard similar stories, same thing where, like, it just never like, are also, like, performance nerves, like, the guy was not able to. Like, I had a best friend and he tried it. Well, this was back in Colorado,
right?
And he tried it and he was like, he was attracted to the girl and he really cared for her, but he was so nervous about, like, making her uncomfortable. And he put so much pressure on himself that he wasn't erect. Oh, right. I lost my glimmer.
You lost your light. You lost your shine.
It's okay.
Anyways, yeah. So that's always been kind of complicated when it comes to you growing up and, like, experience all that sexuality and all that kind of thing, discovering yourself. Were you ever bullied when you were younger?
Yes. Absolutely.
I'm not laughing because it's funny. I'm just laughing because you're like, yeah.
Toughen up, bitch. Yeah, I got bullied a lot. But it was not excusing my bullies. But they all look like Jabba the Hutt now, so who won in the no, I'm kidding. I'm being so petty. No, yeah, I got bullied a lot. I will have to say that it did make me grow thick skin in terms of like people saying, my sexuality. Like now, like it's so funny when like maybe like some random dudes or whatever tries to throw like a gay as a slur towards me, and I'm like, yeah, I am.
Right.
Would you like try? Like I'm like good with it now. Just because I learned how to handle that situation.
Yes.
But yeah, like all throughout high school was very difficult experience for me because I was one out of two queer men out in the entire school, and so like I was like the topic of hot goss.
Right.
And like guys literally treated me like I was a leper. And so it wasn't necessarily something that like I feel like new generations are much better about. I went through like the whole gamut, like the whole stereotype. Like I got shoved into lockers. I got like that type of stuff. But I don't know. I look back at those times and I feel for younger me. I definitely do. But at the end of the day, I'm proud that I didn't let those pieces define me.
Right. For sure.
Yeah, and it was, I'm not going to lie, it was hard. It was like really hard. Yeah, it was really hard. But anyway.
I'm sorry. That's so annoying.
It's okay. Have you gotten bullied?
I didn't have it to the extremity of anyone physically assaulting me, thankfully. I was definitely asked the question literally every 5 seconds, are you gay? Are you gay? You're gay? And I'm like, what?
Oh my God.
Why does it matter? What I am? Like, keep it moving. If I'm gay or not. If I say yes right now, what do you get out of that? What changes in your life?
They're curious.
Like,
they're curious.
They feel so achieved when they get that answer. It's like, why?
No, but you know what? I actually think like, because I got asked a lot by a lot of guys that didn't necessarily treat me like a leper. You just like unlocked some memories. But like guys that didn't treat me like a leper, they just acted really curious around me, and lo and behold, bitches were gay. They were gay. We're gay. They came out later in life, and I'm like, you're just trying to get a taste. You just didn't know how to ask.
Could have just said it. Yeah, I think like if you approach it differently, like I think if you've known the person for a while and like you guys have a good bond, sure. Are you gay, dude? Like, what do you like? Cool, ask that. I would rather you ask than go and assume or talk about it and make
rumors.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's not that I wouldn't want people to not say, are you gay? I would love for them to ask me personally, because I hated when a friend came to me and asked it, and I'm like, why couldn't they come to me and tell me that? But it's more so of just like, it's just like a respect thing. Like, if you don't know me, don't ask me that. Like, it doesn't affect you, and you probably won't see me after tomorrow. So it's like, why do you have to take the time out of your day to figure out something about my life? Like, and
when like you shouldn't even really care.
Yeah, like it is not like it's in a positive way. You're not trying to be like, oh my God, I love your style. How did you buy it? No, it's like, are you gay? And it's like, oh my God.
Well, at the end of the day, like, again, it goes back to the whole, like, they make that your entire identity, right? And so if you are gay, then you're not Ed, you're gay.
Yes.
And so
he's gay. Yeah, that's my gay friend. Yeah. I'm like,
oh my God, the usage of like your sexuality, that always was a pet peeve of mine, because I did have friends who treated me like they're like little gay purse dog, where like they used to like the F slur, for example, and they would be like, oh, it's fine, I have a gay best friend. And I'm like,
absolutely.
Oh, bitch,
not.
I didn't know I was a card.
Right.
Like, I didn't know I was like an inanimate object.
You're a Pokemon. Like, huh?
Yeah. Like, oh yeah, you're gonna stick me on them now because they're calling you out on on bad behavior. It's like very parallel to like that. Oh, I have a Hispanic friend, or I have a black friend, or whatever. Like, I'm just like, no.
Yeah, you don't.
No, you don't
have anything.
They don't belong to you. So yeah.
Literally.
Anyway, so that's funny that you mentioned that, because
So I'm gonna end with one big question.
Okay.
It's big for me because in the last episode, when I got those comments, I got a comment about the way I speak and stuff, and address people in the space, in the community, and I completely understand it and I completely get it.
What was the comment?
Was the way I addressed people in the community. I used the wrong like verbiage now. Like I'm saying like, okay, so I was talking about, let's say I was like, oh, there's only, well, this would be perfect to dip into the biggest question. I was talking about intersex. Well, I wasn't talking about intersex. I stated there's male and female body parts. And I was like, and that's the only two, right, that I would think, because that's like the like norm or like the standard or like whatever. And when I was saying like standard, norm, or average, I was using it to like explain that
I understand where you're coming from. Keep
yeah,
going.
So it was just like I was just trying to explain like what people are used to, right? And like and
default settings.
Yeah, exactly. And that's perfect. But they were taking it as me like kind of alienating. Yeah, alienating them. And that's the last thing I'm trying to do to anybody, because like as we stated, be who the hell you want to be. Like you know, love that. But it's also like I never grew up with I didn't grow up with the proper wording and structure that you guys would like me to have. So I need you to like give me some time, because it's not that I'm saying like I'm not going to speak like that. I can get how that can make someone feel less than. So now I'm going to work on changing that. But it's also like, don't expect me to change overnight, because it's like, I, again, grew up with this for years and I'm just now entering the space and the community and trying to take the time to learn. So it's like, when people like say that, I do get a little ticked off, but if they say it politely, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm glad we both respect each other in the way that, you know, I am trying. And yeah, I just would never want anything else for anybody else. But they said to use widely portrayed. See, that's the one that stuck out to me the most, because the other ones I kind of didn't understand how they would fit the sentence. So therefore, I remembered that one. So it's like I'm gonna try and definitely use what I can when I'm talking about these things, but it's definitely tough because something new is always coming into the community. Something new is always added. There's always new things we need to learn, new verbiages, new, you know, a way to address somebody and make sure that they still feel human. And that's fine. But it's also like, don't get frustrated when I can't, like, you know.
I have a bit, I understand. But wait, what was your question? What were you dipping into?
Yeah, the bigger topic of it all was when I talked about male and female like body parts, and I said I'm pretty sure that's the only ones that are out there. People were saying that that's not the only body parts, that there's intersex as well. So I wanted to know what you felt like. How do you view intersex? Do you know any do you know much about it? Like, can you help me understand what intersex is exactly?
I have an understanding of it, but I feel like, I mean, there's various understandings of it, right? There's a medical understanding of it. There's a cultural understanding of it. And so I feel like I have to pull up a Google definition, because I feel like I'm gonna mess up. And that's, I guess, I do have a bit of a, not to say a hot take, but when it comes to, if we're just talking about biological, how a person presents biologically out of the womb and or transitioned into, yes, there is the penis, there's the vagina, and then there are people who fall somewhere in between. But I feel like a lot of the misconceptions around intersex really come from a cultural perspective, because medically it's not necessarily cut and dry, even though medicine tries to make it that way. But there are people that, I mean, there are multiple mutations of what intersex could be,
right.
And then there's permutations of like even what one sex is. For example, there are people, there really are people who have two phalluses, for example, like they have actually two penises, and they could be just like two tips, or like
Right.
the entire shaft, or two separate entire phalluses. There's a bunch of permutations of it. I don't think, and to clarify on your comment, because I never even took it as you were explaining it. I never took it that like you were just saying like, oh, there's just penises and vaginas and that's all.
Right.
Because that's what we are taught. Like, I don't even think that like our education system at this point is ever prepped. We can't even talk about gay people, let alone like. Sorry. It's okay. Did you notice like right as it did, or did you just?
I hope. We'll see. But the good thing is I have you all the time, so sometimes you just might really be on camera.
It's gonna be my podcast interviewing it.
Literally.
Anyway, so yeah, I didn't even get, like, I don't think our education system really is even set up. We can't even talk about gay people, let alone like what, other, even from a medical perspective, like what other types of sexual identities there are, or even sexual body parts there are. So yes, there are permutations of intersex just based on either genetic mutation and or like mostly it's genetic mutation, but then there's also like human choice. Really, there's even in the process of transitioning, there are people that opt to, because it also really depends on, I've read like different pieces on this, in the consideration of what we consider a sex organ, the reproductive organ. Usually you think of a vagina and a penis, but like some scholarly articles also consider breasts one, right? And so the person might be transgender, and they might have chosen to operate on their chest, so have a top body transition, but not a lower body transition,
right?
And so I don't know why I'm being so quiet. I'm sorry. I'm just trying to be scholarly about it. Anyway, so all of that to say, I don't know. Now I'm looking at the camera, but now all of that to say, like, yes, there's different medical permutations. I am not, again, there are scholarly articles, like if you actually go on and look at studies, like medical studies, some of them will actually examine the body as a whole, mostly what usually makes you male and what makes a woman female, and that's how they choose to, and not limited to sex organs. Either way, again, I think from maybe what the comment was coming from was a cultural perspective, in the sense that like there are other permutations, it's not only a penis and a vagina, and that's not only what exists in this world. And from a cultural perspective, there's a lot of learning to do in that regard.
Yeah.
Because again, I don't know, maybe I can send you the articles, but like even from like, again, from a scholarly perspective or a medical perspective, like they're having a hard time drawing a gray line, because I feel like sometimes even from a medical perspective, they're trying to toe the line with a cultural perspective of like how that's going to be understood by the larger group of society. So I don't even know if that even made sense to you, in the sense that I just rambled on about like body parts. But
no, I completely understood what you were saying. This sort of thing was, after that comment, I tried to look into it myself a little deeper, right, and take a little deeper dive. And from like the basic common knowledge on like Google, right, when you search it up, intersex, it states that there is, as you were stating, like they were explaining them more as like a mutation, right? And like as a body part that has, like you said, like an extra piece to it, or like you're saying two penises, or there was one that said like having a penis but having ovaries that are usually in vaginas. So it was like, basically when I read it, still reading it, like I could understand that you may not want to be identified as a male or female, and if that's what, like, kind of when you talk about like more of a cultural view, like maybe they just don't want to be addressed as male or female, and they would like to be addressed as intersex and make that its own thing, then that's cool. But like when I said male or female body part, and like those are like the only two, looking at intersex itself, it still consists of genitalia or a vagina, right? So like for me, I'm like, I don't know exactly where I was wrong then in that sense. I get that if you wanted representation in that moment when I stated those things, cool. Like I could have said male, female, or intersex, because that is a thing. I understand now what intersex is and that it is a thing. But for me, like down to the science explanation of it, it's still a male or female body part, just in different ways.
Expressed in a different...
like a different combination of it, you know?
Expressed in a different way.
Yeah, so I just like... I wanted your take on it because I was like, am I understanding this wrong? Or like...
You're not. And like, I don't think... It's not that maybe you were understanding it wrong. It's just maybe it wasn't like in your purview. But also to your point, it like... Again, even like science boils it down to that. Now, should we listen to science all the time? I'm a big scientist, so I would say like, let's listen to science.
almost all the time.
But it goes down to the cultural connotation of it, and this is gonna be a hot take to end the podcast, which is probably I'm gonna shoot myself in the foot. But I do think that in the topic of being inclusive or educated, right? We gotta really measure ourselves. If I were like for example, I'm trying to educate somebody on queer, like the experience of being queer, on what it's like to be a gay man in this world, or like, oh my gosh, they said this and it's not really factually accurate, or it doesn't embody my entire experience. Being queer in this world is a double-edged sword. We want to be a part of the larger society. We want our style of life to be normalized. We want it to be, something that is status quo, because that way it's easier. We feel like we're a bigger part of the community. But I feel like a lot of the time that contradicts, or like there's this like contradiction at the same time of like, we all want to acknowledge all of these special little subdivisions and subclasses and everything, which the acknowledgement needs to be there, absolutely. And educated acknowledgement, absolutely. But for a person to drop disclaimers, and I think maybe I feel this more as a content creator, to like drop disclaimers, like 500 disclaimers before you say a sentence, it's a little hard. So while I do get, please educate yourself on X, Y, Z, as long as you're educated on it, but I can't live my entire life thinking of disclaimers before I say or state a simple sentence. Now, I assume that you're, like the way in which you were approaching the conversation wasn't like, F intersex people, they don't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
And so like that's I feel like that's a little bit of like from a viewer perspective, what I usually ask my viewers and like the people that watch us is like, take it with a grain of salt, digest it, happy to have the conversation, like comment down below, like comment something constructive, like did I miss anything? But it like don't come after me for like, oh wait, you missed in section A subsection D subsection 2 point, like it's just it doesn't make sense. And I feel like you deter people away from trying to learn that way.
Yes, absolutely.
Instead of making it a constructive conversation. So do I think you came from the right place. It's awesome that you educated yourself, and I think it's just also having that conversation with your viewers as well of like, hey, I educated myself, but here also like culturally where the limits are at, because like try to have this conversation with like a straight like cishet completely non-queer person. Like imagine trying to approach that conversation, they're gonna be like, I mean, most of them, a lot of them too, they're like, fuck no. Like, no. Like that's
they're not gonna
why.
take the time
like
to learn
they like no. And sure, is that ignorant on their part? Yes. But if you were to approach it like, from like a welcoming perspective, or like if they said something like really awful, like fuck intersex, like they don't exist or whatever, like, hey, about like I've approached it like that with my community, where like, let's look into it, like, or actually look, I have some scholarly articles that actually mention that there's like, I make it like I open their mind, but like from like a positive perspective, not like you're such a fucking bigot, like I need to fucking clean it up. So anyway,
ramble queen.
No, it's all very true. I just like, That's definitely my point of view on it all too. And when it comes to social media, I'm like, I'm doing my best, and I have your sense of humor too. It's like I'm sarcastic and silly and witty sometimes, and I'm not thinking every second about how to like address something. But will I address when I'm wrong and like realize that I was wrong about something? Absolutely. But it's like you also have to realize I'm human, and I'm have a camera on me for a long period of time, and I'm trying very hard to tread lightly around topics because I don't want to offend anybody. But it also becomes like exhausting in the sense because it's like, damn, I'm not even that kind of person to say something with a negative like intention.
Yeah,
and that's why like you just asking like, well, I'm sure you weren't, saying intersex people don't exist, and that's exactly, it's true. I wasn't. I was trying to figure it out, but it's like, it's definitely tough because it's like you don't know how to approach stuff because people will just take it and run. But
I totally feel like, but I totally like get you on like the, I think it's because like I'm a content creator like you.
Yeah,
and, like I've experienced the same like type of backlash. But to your point, like you just wanting to have or being willing and open to have this conversation in the first place just shows.
Yeah.
And I think one last thing that I know, but from like me to you, in the sense of like, as you embark on this journey, you're gonna be a peach, and you're like the juiciest, ripest peach in the world.
Yeah.
And there's still gonna be people that don't like peaches whatsoever. They just don't.
Yeah.
They won't. They like fucking pears, squares. Like, why? What? But yeah, like at one point, I feel like through this journey, like I realized like I'm just gonna have to be myself, and the people that vibe with me, that know that I'm not saying anything with negative intent, that are willing to have constructive conversations with me, will do it. And
Absolutely.
then there are people that are just gonna hate and then call me a bigot, even though I'm fucking queer, and whatever. It's okay. It's chill. Anyway, so I'll let you end. I'll shut up now.
Yeah. But that was really just the whole point of this podcast, because I definitely just wanted to touch on something, because I don't want anyone to ever interpret me in the wrong way. But will I do this every single time? No, unfortunately. I'm sorry, because I don't want the world to think that I'm going to get on my knees and like ask for forgiveness for every little thing, because I know who I am at the end of the day, and I never meant any harm with what I said. But I do want you guys to realize that I will always take the time to learn on my own time, and if you comment something like with criticism, I'm gonna read that comment, I'm gonna take note of it, and I'm gonna try and change in the future. But
period.
Yeah, that's the end of the podcast. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, Daniel, for coming on. You can go, I'll link him below. He's more famous than me, as if anyone's gonna.
No.
He's not gonna get much off of me, but.
No.
I'll link his channel below. You guys can go check him out if you don't already know him. And yeah, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, of course. I actually enjoyed having this conversation. It's actually really nice to have like refreshing like queer conversations.
Yeah.
It's really nice. Yeah. So thank you for having me. This was awesome.
Yay!
Part 2, and if you don't come, bitch, I'm coming after you. I'm gonna fucking be coming after you with those comments.
Like, comment, subscribe, comment rainbows. So part 2 will come, and he would paint himself as a rainbow.
And hit that bell icon. You better know. Like, you better be on your phone whenever Ed posts.
Yeah. Do it all.